Welcome to the Undercovers Podcast. I'm Ben along with Jenna and Paul, and tonight we have Ryan Talbot on. And Ryan, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Absolutely.
All right, so kind of a busy past like 24, 48 hours after that crazy Broncos game. One of the craziest endings I've ever seen in a football game. And then the Bills, they pulled a plug on the Dorsey experiment. Um, what about that's 10 games into his second season, so he made it about 1.5 seasons. And Ryan, you have any quick thoughts, I guess, just on everything in the last 24, 48 hours?
Yeah, I think Ken Dorsey obviously had his flaws. The timing of it's peculiar because if you were to ask me which coach or coaches had the worst outing against the Broncos, I would have said Matthew Smiley in that special teams unit. I would have said some of the head coaching decisions by Sean McDermott, and Ken Dorsey probably would have been third on that list just because of the fact that he had nothing to do with that interception that Josh Allen threw. He can't control a ball going off of Gabe Davis's hand, and things of that nature. James Cook fumbling. But at the end of the day, this is an offense that has not looked right in quite some time. October 1st was the last time that I feel like this offense was firing on all cylinders. We're now into November. They've really struggled overall. So the timing of it was peculiar, but I also get it. It's kind of this clearly isn't working. We have a franchise quarterback, a number one wide receiver in place, and yet this offense just isn't going.
It just there Ken Dorsey just hasn't. I mean, the offense, as you said, hasn't been performing since like October. I mean, you can even go back to last year, where it just hasn't looked right since the Green Bay game. Just like there's just been moments where it looks good and it looks like, hey, and we all jump back on the bandwagon and like, hey, the offense is back again. And then you get this moment where it's like, why against a good team or a good defense is where it's like, just doesn't work. And we start with the first 5 games. We're scoring 33 points per game, and on the last 5 we're only scoring about 20 points per game, and that's about a 12.6 drop off between the first 5 games now. So it's just like there's nothing. It's just it feels like, I don't know what it feels like. It just doesn't feel right. Josh doesn't seem he's comfortable in the offense, but even though there's just times where he seems like he's working well in this offense, but like, it's just weird.
Yeah, no, it's definitely bizarre. It probably, it really feels like he's having to do too much in this system. I feel like there's been a lot of routes that have been run by this team where you have 2 receivers going in the same area. I feel like this offense has become very predictable, where defenses are shouting things out before the snap because it's what they've seen on film. They know the routes that the receivers are going to run. They're putting players in the right spot. And they're really taking away, weapons from Josh Allen in terms of no one's open at his initial read. So he kind of has to scramble, move around, try to create. And, that's not what this offense is meant to be. And fans will hate hearing this, but it also goes back to Sean McDermott's catchphrase of the year, complementary football. Ever since they've lost a lot of those key defensive pieces, they've lost the battle of field position. Even if they're making stops on the field, opposing teams are getting a few first downs here and there. They're punting, backing the Bills up. Then the Bills have to go 70, 80 yards downfield rather than early on this year where they were starting maybe near the 40, maybe at midfield. That goes hand in hand. The special teams unit has been very underwhelming this year. Sam Martin has been punting a lot of line drive kicks that are allowing returns. And if you're not playing well in the other 2 phases, it's also going to affect your offense to a certain extent. So there's a lot to this. I don't know if firing Ken Dorsey is going to necessarily fix it, but I also think it was kind of a move that needed to be made.
Do you have any ideas as to why, special teams hasn't been operating well? Like, for example, Sam Martin, his punts just have not put us in good field, put the defense in good field position.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I'm no punting expert though, but he's just not getting the hang time on the punts that
Mhm.
you necessarily need. And if you're just kicking those line drives, your coverage team can't get downfield. And I feel like this coverage team, at least over McDermott's tenure, maybe the last few years they have gone back a little bit. When you have a good punt with hang time, you see Saran Neal flying down there. You see some of these guys, and they make it very hard for players to return the ball. A lot of fair catches, and if they do try to return it, they're in the position to make a play. That hasn't happened the past few games. Um, I thought that last year they also took a little bit of a step back in that area. So, not to pile on Matthew Smiley, but this unit has not played up to necessarily the level they should, considering the money it feels like they invest every year in that special teams unit. They've had guys since McDermott's come along that they've paid fairly well in terms of being core special teamers. You look at a Tyler Matakevich, for example, whose main role is just to be a special team guy, and yet this unit is not playing up to that level that they should be at this point.
Yeah. And we've been punting more often too, so that just puts a lot of stress on Sam Martin. Um,
Yeah.
He's a punter. It's his job, so he should know how to punt. But we've been an offense that rarely punts.
Sure, and it feels like opposing teams are also getting some pressure on his punt. So maybe he feels like he has to get the ball away a half second, a quarter second earlier than what he would like, and that can obviously affect the hang time and even the directional, aspects of the punt. So again, it's been a lot of small issues that are kind of snowballing into bigger issues.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Brian, talking kind of about, just like the coordinator firing and Matthew Smiley, and Aaron Rodgers made an interesting point on the McAfee show. He said basically he's seen it before, but he doesn't think the Bills fire the OC if they win that game. If that kick was missed or just other circumstances, one less turnover. But I know McDermott had previously said in a press conference, even recently, that he's not making a change there. I know, like you mentioned earlier, it kind of has seemed like a long time coming, but do you think, though, this loss just kind of created just like a new sense of urgency, or do you think, even with a win, he still kind of had a short leash?
I think they would have fired him at the next loss. So I think he would have been, still the OC for this team going into this upcoming game against the Jets. But I think, whenever that next loss would have come, that would have been it. And that's not a great thing to consider either. If that's in the back of your mind, being Sean McDermott, the head coach, you probably should have done it a few weeks ago when things were already kind of spiraling downward. He gives that, every time he met with the media, met with us, he would say, "Oh, I've got confidence in Ken. I have confidence in this offense. They're going to turn things around." But as things weren't changing, you kind of have to figure that a change needed to be made there to salvage this season. This team came into the year with Super Bowl expectations, and now they're 5-5. You probably need about 10 wins to get into the playoffs. They've already lost the Jets. They've already lost the Patriots this year. Those were supposedly those winnable games. And by the way, you still have the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Chargers, and the Dolphins, who, I know the Bills handled them in the first game. That's still a really good offense too. And the Bills will be missing some defensive pieces there. So good luck getting to 10 wins, especially if you would have kept Dorsey around. So, you're really hoping that Joe Brady kind of brings this magic in a bottle, so to speak. When these new coordinators, new head coaches kind of get these jobs, usually the teams play up for a few weeks. And that's not to say this is going to be a short-term fix. Maybe Joe Brady is going to have some answers. If you look at his time in Carolina, he didn't have great talent there. He had an oft-injured Christian McCaffrey. He had some bad quarterback play. But I like a lot of the things that he did. They ran the ball from under center. That's something that I think Bills fans have been very frustrated seeing them out in the shotgun on those run plays. He loves motion. The Panthers were near the top in the league, or at least in the top third of the league in motion pre-snap. I think that can really help a quarterback in terms of what he's seeing, in terms of confusing the defenses, even creating mismatches ahead of the snap. And then he's also someone that utilize play action very well. And when the Bills have used play action this year, it feels like Josh Allen has been very efficient. So some positives there, some things to kind of look forward to as soon as this Sunday against the Jets.
Yeah, and then how soon is that gonna, take effect? Because like you have a week to put in your play calls and register it within the offense, and that's just not a lot of time. You obviously training camp is where everything like comes together, but 1 week is just not gonna it's not gonna magically fix itself against the Jets. But the only thing I can think of is that he's got play calls that the rest of this league or the Jets haven't seen yet. So it could be a surprise to them. They have tape on Ken Dorsey's offense, but they don't have tape on Joe Brady's offense with the Bills. But like I said, it's not enough time to implement it all.
Yeah, he definitely can't do a full install, obviously, of what he did in Carolina or what he'd like to do, but he can take some of these concepts that Dorsey has used. He might be able to modify. He might be able to change some of the routes that the receivers are running slightly, but he can hopefully sprinkle in a few things that he wants to do. Maybe a certain play where Josh Allen was in the shotgun of Ken Dorsey's play. Maybe he's under center now. Maybe it's more play action getting mixed in that hasn't been utilized in the Dorsey system. So I'm sure there are some things that maybe the Bills haven't utilized enough of under Dorsey that he can kind of sprinkle in and make his own. But you're right, this is not enough time. Even if the Bills would have had a bye week coming off of this loss from the Broncos, you're not going to get a ton done because, like you said, to get a full, your whole system in here, you need a lot of time. You need an entire offseason generally, and that's not, time is the last thing the Bills have right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So kind of a two-part, interesting question here. Sean McDermott, in the offseason, signed his extension. Then there's Ken Dorsey, kind of like the two scapegoats here. Say if we fail expectation once again, like either missing the playoffs or we don't get back to the AFC Championship game, and if we don't get to the AFC Championship and win it, failing expectation. One, do you think there's a chance that he gets canned after this season? And two, do you think after the firing of Ken Dorsey, you can kind of see the players are kind of like half in, half out? Some like it, some don't. You mean after the Broncos game, players are declining, to go for interviews, and they're going to social media and saying some things. Do you think he's kind of has lost the locker room? And do you think, is there any way that he could possibly get it back?
Yeah, that's a great question. The Bills have had a lot of success under Sean McDermott. There's no denying that. And obviously, Terry Pagula signed McDermott and Brandon Beane to an extension this offseason. But you also went into this season saying, okay, this is the year they have to kind of get over that hump. They have to really make that run to the playoffs. And now we're sitting here after 10 games and wondering if they're even going to make it in. If they don't make the playoffs, that is falling so far back from the expectations that this team had going into the year that I almost feel like you're going to challenge Pagula to make a very tough decision. And I don't know the specifics of how much McDermott is owed over this the last few years of his deal here, but when you are an owner of an NFL team, you are a billionaire, so you can generally eat a contract like that.
And he has before with Rex Ryan and NHL coaches, right?
Right, absolutely.
Ralph Kruger.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if push comes to shove, you look at what you have on this roster. You have Josh Allen. You have Stephon Diggs, whose contract, and now the Bills want to get out of it, but obviously his brother chirping a lot in the last 24 to 48 hours. You have Stephon Diggs, whose contract you cannot move. You have Dalton Kincaid. You have all this offensive firepower, and you've had a defensive head coach. I think that if Pagula wanted to make the change, this would be the time to do it at the end of this season. Get someone that's not going to waste Josh Allen's prime and the final few years of Stephon Diggs' prime, and who can utilize James Cook, who can get the most out of Dalton Kincaid. And, there's guys like Ben Johnson out there in Detroit that would be a very popular choice that would make a ton of sense. You don't just stay with a head coach because of what he's done in the past, because if you really do look at it, 2020, it was the AFC Championship game. They lost. The year after that, it was the 13 seconds. And, that's frustrating because they should have been going on to the championship game for the second consecutive year. So you took a step back there. You win a wild card game last year. I struggled to win a wild card game against a third string quarterback in Miami. Obviously, game in Buffalo, but on Miami's team. And then you just kind of no-show that Bengals game. I know they were emotionally drained last year, but they have been, in a way, taking a step back the past few years. So now if you just miss the playoffs altogether, yeah, your message in the locker room is no longer necessarily resonating. If the Bills are sitting at 6-8, 6-10 at some point, how many are you going to trust the process, so to speak? It's kind of hard to do because a lot of these guys know that these windows in the league to win championships, they can disappear quickly. And that's not to say the Bills can't be a Super Bowl contender next year, but they'll have to have a good draft. They might have to make a change of head coach as well, though, for that to happen.
So
I was thinking.
seems like everyone just lost their mind after that beautiful answer you gave. So kind of going back to Joe Brady and heading into this game this weekend. Obviously there's not much he can do to prepare for this game. Maybe like you said, put Josh under center and play in areas. So what kind of do you expect Joe Brady to do, and how this offense is going to look like against the Jets team that we know this offense has over the last few games, and Josh Allen in the last few games has struggled against the Jets, and kind of goes into that question of the timing of the firing. Maybe we should have saw the firing earlier before this Jets game, maybe after Jacksonville. So what do you kind of expect out of, Josh Allen and this offense and against a Jets team that has had this Bills number over the last few games?
Yeah, again, great question. It's tough to try to figure out what he can do in this short of time to figure out this Jets defense, because the problem with this defense is they can generate pressure up front without sending blitzes, without sending extra help. They're just that talented up front. As good as this offensive line has been this year, they've struggled a little bit against strong defensive lines, and that's exactly what the Jets have. But it also works out that if, let's just say, he puts together a great game plan, the Bills win this game convincingly. I still don't expect much fight from this Jets offense. So it could be a low scoring game, but if the Bills actually show up and play well in offense, that's a huge first test passed for Joe Brady, because like you said, this Jets defense has been the Achilles heel for Josh Allen last year, this year. He turns the ball over a lot against this unit. They pressure him a lot. So if he can come in and utilize play action, if he can come in and create mismatches off the line based on pre-snap motion and really kind of frustrate this Jets defense early and put up some points and kind of create that separation out of the gate, that's going to really bode well for this offense and their confidence. They definitely seem to be a little bit shell-shocked right now, especially Josh Allen. He's still, he just seems like he's lacking confidence. Even at today, when the media talked with him, something just seems off about this guy. So winning cures all. Winning really helps. And if Brady can come out and use some of his concepts to help this team put up points and pull away from a team that the last 3 games has really created some trouble for them, it's definitely a step in the right direction.
How much do you How much do you attribute the lack of success that the Bills have had against the Jets defense to maybe Ken Dorsey?
I think there's part of it. I think that, again, you've limited Gabe Davis's route tree at times. I feel like you've been a little bit predictable at times in terms of what you're going to do. But it didn't all fall on Dorsey, though. Like I said, this offensive line has really struggled, and that would fall more on Cromer. But Cromer overall this season, I feel like the O-line's fared pretty well. It's a lot of little factors, but yeah, I think that defenses going into this season felt like they knew what this offense was going to try to do. They kind of got figured out last year. I'm not going to say it happened at halftime of the Packers game, but that was a really good example of a tale of two halves. And then the Bills, never really looking right again that season in terms of, blowing by teams like they were earlier on that year. So maybe just a few simple adjustments here can really go a long way. Dorsey certainly has factored into those struggles, though.
Yeah. And going back to how last year was, the second half, I feel like, when you first install an offense in the first portion of the season, like you have success because defenses, they don't really know how to prepare for you. And then the second half of the season happened, and I kind of wonder how much defenses really started to figure out Dorsey's offense. And then for this season, the beginning of the season, it was fine outside the Jets game. But then, the offense started stalling a little bit. And that's where I think, defenses, they began to figure out the Bills' offense again.
Yeah.
That goes back to the predictability.
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
look at the two of the interceptions Allen has had recently along the sidelines. Defenses have seen that on film, and you go to the Bengals game, and he pretty much said, "Yeah, I used to be a quarterback. This being the Bengals cornerback that had the interception. I kind of lulled him into the interception because he knew the route, he knew where the player was going to go, and as soon as he thought that Allen thought that the cornerback was coming up, he threw it, he dropped back, easy interception." Last week against the Broncos, right before halftime, same thing. The cornerback knew this is the route concept that they've been running on these outs and near the sidelines. I'm just going to jump in front of it. It was a pass Allen absolutely should not have ever attempted or made. But defenses are kind of savvy to what they do in those moments at certain times. Patrick Peterson said something last year in the Minnesota game. And mind you, that was a very high-scoring game. The Bills put up a lot of points in that one. But he knew, what Josh Allen was going to try to do at a certain time. He had a big interception in that game. So you're right. Over time, you see things on film. You see that the Bills aren't adjusting things or even flipping the play concepts in terms of running it to the other side of the field or things like that. And it becomes very easy to say, okay, Gabe Davis only runs this, and this kind of route in this formation. And Stephon Diggs is a jack of all trades. He can do anything, but there have been guys that have been kind of limited in terms of their route tree for sure.
Yeah, we saw that same interception versus the Jets in the first game.
Yeah.
It was directed at Gabe Davis. And then we saw the same interception versus the Patriots on the first play of the game.
Yeah, and that's just it. I mean, these teams, say what you want about the overall talent level of these teams and where they are right now, but they watch the film. They get paid a lot of money to diagnose what they see, whether you're talking about the coaches or the players, and they're well prepared. And if you're not making changes to your system on a week by week basis and making little new wrinkles and new adjustments, you're going to get caught very quickly. And it's clear that Dorsey's offense was getting figured out on a week by week basis.
Yeah. I mean, how many times have you felt comfortable going into the second half thinking Ken Dorsey, he's going to flip a switch and things are going to improve? I mean, we've had those little fourth quarter comebacks where the offense kind of puts it together, but that's when they start going up tempo. And Josh Allen kind of makes things happen. But I've never felt comfortable going into the second half of a game thinking that Dorsey was gonna do things differently or even stick to what's going right. I always felt like he tried to veer away and try something different, even when running the ball is going well, going under center is going well, but he just reverts back to shotgun within the 5-yard line of the red zone. It's frustrating.
No, absolutely frustrating, and you're right. They're not a team that have made great second half adjustments. Their last win against Tampa Bay, a lot of that had to do with Allen being able to roll out of the pocket, use his legs, draw the linebackers in, and create space downfield for guys like Kincaid and company. But you're not necessarily going to be able to do that on a week by week basis. When it's just been the play calls as is, this team has stalled out more times than not. And while they've been able to score late in games, a lot of the time it's either been too little, too late, or you're giving the other team still a chance to get back in it. They haven't been able to pull away from a team since that Miami game, which we previously talked about. So that's really saying something with all the talent on this team that you can't pull away from some of these teams that could be picking top 5, top 10 in the draft here next year.
Right. McDermott also, one thing I found interesting from his press conference, just him saying that like it was basically his decision and his alone, and Josh basically took a lot of the blame today in his press conference, and kind of just like, total opposites as far as how they went. But I mean, outside of Josh, was this further like other players on the team though pushing, McDermott, or do you think McDermott's just trying to, save himself here?
I think McDermott probably read the room. I don't think necessarily he was going to players, or players were maybe even coming to him saying we got to get rid of this guy. But you can see the demeanor in the players. You can see how defeated Josh Allen has looked throughout this year in the post game press conferences, or just throughout the week too. You get a feel on that. And while it's definitely a move to try to save yourself in terms of McDermott, it was just something where I think he also saw this isn't working.
Right.
That it is his decision alone. And I also think at the end of the day, you look at some of these bottom QBs in the league, whether it's a young guy like Desmond Ridder, whether it's a Mac Jones, guys that have been benched over the past few weeks. You can't do that to Josh Allen. Josh Allen's not on a rookie contract. Josh Allen has earned a $258 million contract. You can't take him out, sit him out for a drive or two. One, he's just way too good to do that in general. But what you can do is you can say, okay, well, we got to cut ties with this offensive coordinator that, you kind of handpicked once Brian Daboll went to the Giants. You said, I want to work with this guy. You're not performing on the field, so we're going to get rid of this guy. This was kind of the one guy you wanted, but now we're changing course because it's clearly not working. So, like I said, you can't bench a guy of that caliber. It would be crazy to do or consider, but you can take away someone that, he said he really wanted to work with him. He said that this was going to help this offense stay on track, and that has not been the case.
Back to Gabe Davis for a minute. Most fans had super high expectations on Gabe Davis. And it just hasn't panned out for some reason. And is it because maybe the scheme didn't fit Gabe Davis, or do you think it was too, I don't know, maybe too Stephon Diggs dependent, where it's just giving it just to him and hopefully it works, and then or just was just the routes not running right? Like, where do you kind of find like the implosion of Gabe Davis?
I think everyone's opinion of Gabe Davis was skewed after that 4 touchdown performance in the playoffs against the Chiefs. You left that game saying, oh man, what a gut punch to lose that game. But hey, the Bills clearly have a number 2 wide receiver on this team opposite Stephon Diggs. And it has not been the case the past few years and 2 seasons. And last year he dealt with an ankle injury. And before that, he had some pretty big games. He had a nice game against the Steelers that comes to mind. And I think that might have actually been post ankle injury, maybe not. But either way, he's had his moments. But there's a lot of factors. One, they've limited his route tree in terms of the routes that he's been running. They were really trying to utilize him in that intermediate deep part of the field where he had that deceptive speed and could create separation at times. It wasn't until a few weeks ago that they were targeting him underneath and letting him catch the ball and run. And he had 9 receptions in that game. And it's like, where has this been? Why haven't they utilized him in this way? And then this game against the Broncos, they didn't utilize him like that at all. So that's part of the frustration with Ken Dorsey. You found something that kind of worked for the guy, and then you went away from it the next game. Why not keep giving him the ball in those areas, letting him try to create after the catch? So that's part of the problem too. And I think at the end of the day, Gabe Davis is a top-notch number 3 wide receiver that's been asked to do wide receiver the job of a number 2 wide receiver, and he's just not there. He doesn't create the separation off the line the way a Stephon Diggs can. No, you can get him the ball quickly and let him get the yards after the catch. But if you want him to win off the line on a slant, on a certain kind of route, it's not always going to happen. He struggles off the line. If you can add someone to this offense that can win off the line, a la Diggs, you're going to be in good shape next year. because that's something that, would benefit Josh Allen. So a lot of little factors. I don't want to bash Gabe Davis. It's just, to me, I don't think that he is that number 2 receiver that I once thought he was.
Ryan, thank you again for joining us and giving your valuable insight and analysis. Real quick, do you want to just let everyone know where we can find your work? Obviously, we can follow you on Twitter. I know you're on the Shout podcast with Matt Perino.
Yeah,
and I think it's Syracuse.com, right?
Yeah, I mean, you've kind of covered it all. Yeah, Syracuse.com, NYUp.com. You can find me on Twitter at Ryan Talbot Bills, and you can listen to Shout on any of your favorite podcast platforms. But we're also live on YouTube, and it also streams on Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on. I'm a part of the little texts that you and Matt give out. I always, like, whenever I see a notification, I'm always reading it. It's like I just love the inside the locker room stuff and all the wrap ups of the press conferences. It's just great information.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you subscribing to the Shout text line, and I do enjoy chatting with you on there as well, having a little bit of back and forth at times.
Mm-hmm.
So awesome. Thank you.
All right, Ryan, you have a good night. Thank you again.
See ya.
All right, so that was
awesome to hear.
Yeah, that was a great 30 minutes of some valuable insight, and I think Ryan kind of nailed the nail right on the head as far as McDermott and Dorsey. And I mean, Josh hasn't been without blame this season, missing open receivers, but everything starts and ends with McDermott. End of the game, he called 2 timeouts. He ran the same blitz 2 plays in a row against a savvy offensive head coach and Sean Payton, who had the perfect counterpunch to it. What did it do? Result in passing interference. And he called 2 timeouts, and we did not have the correct personnel. That gave a lot of Bills fans flashbacks of 13 seconds. And a lot of Bills fans I talked to who were big Sean McDermott supporters just kind of finally came to the realization that McDermott's a good coach, but he just too many mental mistakes in these big games. To just go back and just kind of go through all the big games we've played in the Sean McDermott era, these games of the year type games, overtime games, everything. It always seems like we're on the opposite end of these close, tight fought games. Last year, the Jefferson catch, the Hail Murray, the Tampa Bay loss in overtime, right? The Tennessee Josh slipping on the 1 yard, the 4th and 1 inside the red zone where we could have got the 1 seed that season. 13 seconds. Like even, the Houston game, we're up 16-0 at one point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you kind of look at like the evidence is starting to stacking together. And one statistic that just really sticks with me is no head coach and quarterback combo have ever won their first Super Bowl after 5 years of not winning their first one. So right now, history is against them. You can see there's a clear regression, which Ryan had mentioned, going back from the AFC Championship game all the way to now, where they sit 5-5. I mean, we're halfway through the season. And I know, Jenna, you wanted to do those midseason superlatives. So if you guys want to, go right into those right now at 5-5.
Yeah. Oh man, when you mentioned that no head coach quarterback duo who has ever won a Super Bowl after 5 years of not winning one, is just
we are in Sean McDermott's 7th year.
Yeah, we're in the quarterback duo, but we're in year 6. We're in the twilight zone. Like,
it's that's really upsetting.
The milk is kind of getting expired.
Yeah, the milk's getting expired. The sand ran out, and the hourglass.
Yeah,
like it's getting rough for for old Shawnee boy. But
and
you guys ready? Oh, go ahead, Jenna.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say that like I've defended Sean. I've been neutral to supportive of him, but like if they move on from him, I totally support it, and I want a offensive minded head coach.
Ben Johnson. Ryan
Yes,
already mentioned
Ben
him.
Johnson. Yeah,
That's who I want right now.
I just want someone who's going to elevate Josh and
A
uh,
100%.
bring him to another level or keep him at the level that he's been at for the past 3 years. It's
Keep Josh to where
but
he is, but
there's
elevate
more
the
meat on the
players
bone,
around him.
though.
I mean,
Yeah,
listening to McAfee yesterday in his opener, kind of just mentioning how even outside of Dorsey, it kind of looks like the vibes are dead. You have, epic special teams error. Josh looks very confused and dejected, similar to how Goff looked when he was back on the Rams. And
yeah,
the Lions did not even trade for Jared Goff. Like, he was just included so they could eat his cap so the Rams could afford Stafford's contract. It was kind of like a placeholder, gap filler for them at quarterback. And with Ben Johnson, he's turned Goff into potentially the Lions franchise quarterback, borderline top 10 quarterback. They're one of the best offenses in the league. And can you just imagine what a coach like Ben Johnson could do with, the skill that, the Bills have between Josh Allen, an upgrade over Jared Goff, without a doubt. You got Stephon Diggs, Dalton Kincaid,
yeah. I
James
mean,
Cook,
see what
like
they're
that's some weapons
yeah,
to work with.
see what they're doing with
Depending on how we finish, we could have a decent draft pick to, draft a Roma Dunzi or a Malik Neighbors. So, I mean, we'll see how this ends up playing out. But
yeah.
we
I
got
mean,
stuff to work with. And you see what Ben Johnson is doing and has done. I'm all for it personally.
yeah. See what he's done with Sam Laporta.
Yeah.
And
man.
also
I
they
mean,
got
can
they
you
got
imagine what he could do
hold
with
on, wait.
King? Oh,
Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me, but like I don't want to speak over you, but like they have Jahmyr Gibbs, and
mhm.
he's a similar style player to James Cook. So imagine what he could do with James Cook, Dalton Kincaid, Stephon Diggs.
Mhm.
I
Right.
I love Amon-Ra St. Brown, but Stephon Diggs, he's a different level player than Amon-Ra.
Right. I mean, you mentioned Laporta, and like that's where I was gonna chime in. Like, can you imagine what he could do with Dalton Kincaid when what he's already doing with Sam Laporta? I mean, I know I don't think Cook is as elite of a playmaker as Gibbs, but I mean he could still be able to get, a decent amount out of Cook. Like, you see what he's doing with David Montgomery, what he did with Jamal Williams. Like, he's done it with lesser backs. So I mean I'm definitely for it.
Yeah, for sure.
For it in every way, just look. w- we talk about this
Mhm.
almost, it seems like every week since the Bills offense has just been this horrible train wreck.
Yeah.
It's
We
not
just need a new energy.
new energy. There's no energy whatsoever other than Stephon Diggs, rallying the troops every game.
Yeah.
Other than that, there's nothing else. Ken Dorsey just walks up looking like a math professor, just hoping whatever he has to call
Mhm.
works, and
Yeah,
McDermott is there clapping his hands.
can we
Other than
talk
that,
about
there's no real energy.
how he looked going into that game? Like
He
he
looked
looked
like he
like
wanted to
someone
get
who
fired.
he looked like a guy who knew his job was on the line,
Yeah.
to be honest. Like,
McDermott probably had a talk with him before the
yeah.
game.
And
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
yeah. And Ryan said that he he notes how this might have been like a reactionary decision, to the loss, and how, if they had won, maybe they wouldn't have fired him until the next loss.
Right.
But I know that head coaches, they have their little like conference speak, and they might say, yes, I do have confidence in this offensive coordinator or this assistant coach, but we don't know what their conversations are like in house. They could always behind closed doors be saying like, hey, like you gotta do this, or else like
Right.
I-
Oh,
your job is on the line. I'm certain that McDermott probably had a conversation with Dorsey, and even last week when Allen was doing his press conferences, he kind of shifted what's the word?
Kind of dodged
Accountability. He
mhm.
shifted accountability onto the play calling,
Right.
which kind of insinuates that maybe he's uh, unhappy with the way Dorsey's calling the offense. So there's probably been a rift prior to this game that they might have had some internal conversations. I really don't doubt that.
All right.
Um,
We ready to do those superlatives?
Yeah.
All right. Most improved players. Who do you guys think has been the most improved player on this Buffalo Bills team? Ben, you want to go first?
I'm gonna go AJ Epinesa. I know he had 6.5 sacks all of last season, but I mean, I
What's he
believe
at,
he
6
already hit.
now?
I think he's at six and a
Six and a
half
half.
now on the season.
Wow. I love it.
So yeah, I mean, he already hit that. He's about to go for his career high. I
Yeah,
mean, he
dude,
looks.
that's without Vaughn going ham.
But honestly, Vaughn has, in my opinion, like even impeded on his snaps. Like
Yeah, that's
we need to
true.
give Vaughn less snaps until he's fully
Mhm.
ready. Like AJ should be on the field in those critical situations. At the end of the games, I know he was in that Denver game, but just he needs to get more snaps, and I really hope he gets extended in the offseason.
Yeah. My most improved player is Ed Oliver. He currently leads the league in defensive tackle pressures with 41. He's fourth in sacks amongst defensive tackles as well. I know we're all complaining about the contract, or maybe just neutral on the contract this offseason, but he's really proved himself. And he missed a couple sacks, potential sacks, the other night. That pissed me off when he lost grip on Russell Wilson, but he's producing pressures and he's getting to the quarterback. Might not be finishing, but at least he's getting there. It shows that he's got the power. Just he's had a little bit of inconsistencies next to him at defensive tackle. Maybe Linville Joseph can help him. I honestly, this has been his best game since um, maybe I I think he might have had a good game versus Tampa. I'd say it's probably one of his best games all season. So getting the continuity at defensive tackle will definitely help him.
My most improved player is going to be AJ Epinesa. I mean, you can go Ed Oliver. I mean, when I was thinking about most improved player, I was like, well, Ed Oliver, I mean, he's been out there almost impacting almost every game this year. But then there's also another player that after last year, we asked for him to get
Mhm.
more snaps, which was at AJ Epinesa. And with these
Mhm.
more snaps, he has improved this defense. I mean, from far and beyond. I mean, 6.5 sacks already. I mean, that's already at his season total of last year. I
Career
mean,
high at that.
he's turning into a sack machine. I mean,
Yeah,
he has
Isn't that
one
crazy?
interception. He also
pick
has one
six.
interception and
Yeah.
one forced fumble this year.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, sack
In the
machine,
forced
turnover machine.
fumble, he recovered himself. He almost had another. I
Yeah.
mean, at one point he was near the top. As far as batted passes and deflected passes, like he's a beast.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. I just remember a couple years ago we were the coaches were asking him to lose weight and gain weight, and we're just like, oh my gosh, that's impeding on his progress and his development. And he's probably got himself at a stable weight now, and he's done the Von Miller pass rush camps. So that's definitely helped him, and the coaching staff, they believe. You got to give credit to this coaching staff for believing in him developing him, getting rid of Boogie Basham instead of him. It's
Mhm.
just it's been really cool to see. I'm really happy for him, and I hope that we lock him down for the future.
All right, let's do the next one quickly. Most disappointing player on the
Gabe
Bills this season.
Davis. Don't really have to give much further explanation though. He still has critical drops. He had 0 catches on 2 targets against the Bengals. He's just been wildly inconsistent. I mean, it's a contract year for him. He already turned down $12 million a year. He's supposed to be a wide receiver 2. He's been playing more like a wide receiver 4. To me, it has to be Gabe Davis.
For me, it's Deontay Hardy. We haven't used him in the way that we thought we would. Back in Dable's offense, he had a gadget guy. That was Isaiah McKenzie. I thought that they might bring that back and try to utilize him on jet sweep. I mean, they've had some jet sweeps, but it's not as often at all. And I thought that he might be a good slot guy. They're trying to use him on the boundary, and it's not working. It's leading to interceptions, and incomplete passes. I'm pretty disappointed with how they've utilized him. Maybe Joe Brady can start using him like a gadget guy and less as a boundary receiver. I don't think that they've used him in motion. It's confusing. We have him next year too, so you would think that they would try to, utilize him as a more important role when they're paying him. Was $6 million a year?
Nah, it's more like $4 million, I think.
$4 million.
Yeah.
They're still paying
still
him
a
a good
decent
chunk.
chunk
Yeah.
of change.
So it's really confusing. We were all really confused when they first brought him in, but then you start hearing about this guy and his
Right.
supposed speed. Where is that speed? I don't see it.
He's not fast.
I
He's
thought I
supposed to
saw
run
it in training camp.
4.5.
Yeah.
Nah, he's not fast. He runs like a 4.45. Like he's really
I
not
don't know.
that fast.
Everybody
His
was
speed is
talking about how he's
overrated.
a speedster.
Nah, he's not a speedster, John. He's
Man,
pretty
I don't
slow.
know where I got that from, but I
Yeah.
thought that he was a speed guy.
Everyone
Shoot.
thought he was because he was so short, but no,
Yeah.
we were lied to. All right.
Okay. All right. So that
Alright.
that actually makes me feel better knowing that he's not actually a speed guy and we can't use him in that way. So there's still
Still a disappointing
There's
signing. He's done
there's still
nothing.
room
We
for
you
another
thought he would be
receiver that
something.
has
Yeah.
speed. So it's not like we're wasting that talent.
Right.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm going to go Gabe Davis. I mean, just like there's nothing
Ben,
more
you
to
gotta
say
put a
about Gabe
trademark on
Davis
your
instead
answers.
of
I
me
know,
being so
right?
hyped about him in the offseason. I bought his jersey, and then he's
Oh.
not
Yeah.
going to be here after this season. Just
I have a
okay.
freaking I have
He
another
owes me a
player.
refund. All right, who's the hardest working player on the Bills team through 10 games?
Hardest working player. Ooh, that's a good one. I mean, the obvious answer is probably Josh, just because, you heard what Ryan said earlier about how Dorsey was making his job harder than it needed to be. He was basically asked to do so much of the offense, still so good analytically, EPA passer ratings, so many touchdowns. And you look at the turnover worthy plays, and even Orlovsky said it, he's only had really 3 bad, interceptable balls in the past 5 or so games. And it just so happened luck has kind of just bounced the other way. But he could also be better. And that's the easy answer. So I'll go Terrell Bernard. Like, look at last season to where he is now, picking up the green dot from Tremaine Edmonds. I'll go Terrell Bernard. He's been phenomenal so far.
Yeah, Terrell Bernard has been working really good. Jenna, who's your hardest working player?
My hardest working player is Khalil Shakir. Whenever his number is called, he's always answered. He had that long reception from Josh on the left boundary versus the Broncos. He had a really good game against the Bucks. He even had a good game against the Bengals. It's just like when we thought that he was further down the depth chart, he's just risen up.
Sure.
And in the future, I think that starting next year, even in the second half of this season, he's going to be our wide receiver 3. I have clear confidence in him that he can be the wide receiver 3, and if we draft a rookie that's not like in the first round or the second round, like if they have confidence in Khalil to be the wide receiver 2, like I think he could take that next step. I don't want it to be another Gabe Davis situation when
Yeah, I'd say
you know,
leave him at the wide receiver 3. Like, no
yeah,
reason, to push him past his boundaries because
right,
he's,
yeah,
more of a slot guy. He can play on the outside as
yeah,
well if need be. But you still want a true X, like someone who Gabe Davis,
mm-hmm.
like his, kind of
We
his
need size.
mold or frame. Yeah, someone with size, someone who could separate, they could still block.
Troy Franklin,
Troy Franklin, someone like that.
Xavier
Um,
Legette.
yeah, there's a
We
lot. There's some big boys in
isn't
this
Roma
draft.
Dunes like
He's like 6'1",
6'1"?
6'2".
Yeah,
Yeah. I
we really
mean,
need a larger frame wide
AD
receiver.
Mitchell,
I love AD Mitchell. He's my guy. Yeah.
Paul, who's your hardest working?
I'm going to say Ed Oliver because
Oh,
he
okay.
has, even though could be one of the most improved, he had to work hard to get his contract last year, and he has to work hard this year to prove people that he deserved that contract.
Sure.
So, I mean, what he's been doing, and also getting a shout out from Daquan Jones, and when he went on Twitter, he said, Ed Oliver is the hardest working man out there, after that, in that Denver game. So, I mean, Ed Oliver, even though some people might not like that contract, I mean, he is given he has been he's deserved his flowers of praise, and hopefully his hard work continues because the Bills are 5-5, and oh my, he's
Yeah,
going to
they're
have to
gonna
continue
they're
to work
gonna
hard.
need Ed Oliver to keep working
Yeah.
hard. Obviously, Khalil Shakir to keep working hard as well as Bernard. Do we have any other ones, or is that wrap it up?
So I would like to retract my statement on Deontay Hardy, actually,
Okay.
because we haven't used him, and we're not using him properly.
Okay. So who's more
Uh,
disappointing?
Yep. Um, who is more disappointing?
You're just going to go through the Bills
Probably
depth chart
okay.
and just hopefully you choose
I'm gonna
one.
say maybe Jordan Phillips.
Yeah, he did
No.
have that face mask. He's missed some big tackles. I
Yeah.
can see that. That definitely Jordan Phillips maybe. Yeah. So is that
And
all
also
this?
another
all the
most improved
superlatives.
player,
Oh,
Yep.
what?
Spencer Brown.
Spencer Brown. I like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
All right, we got our game picks next.
Yeah, let's go. Week 11 game picks. A lot of good games on this slate. Starting with Thursday night, which hopefully it turns out to be a Thursday night at least a good Thursday night game. Hopefully. Bengals going on the road to Baltimore in a fun AFC
and they're on the
North game.
road. Man, yeah, I'm going with the Ravens. T. Higgins is out. Andre Yoshivas is out. Sam Hubbard is out. The Bengals are coming off of a nasty loss against the Texans, which, one would think the Bengals would take care of the Texans. They took care of the Bills in a 6-point margin. But, you would think an experienced team like the Bengals would take advantage. And Lou Anarumo, he's one of the best defensive coordinators in the league and one of the best adjusters in the league as far as on defense. So you would think that he might be able to change up some things against a rookie quarterback, but they didn't have any success again. They didn't really have much success against him, and they were able to run the ball on the Bengals as well, very effectively. And the Ravens, they have a decent run game. So Lamar has always had success against the Bengals. I know some Bengals fans, they'll want to tell you that they haven't, because there's like a fluke game where they blew out the Ravens. But the Bengals, or the Ravens always put up a fight against the Bengals. So, at home with a couple Bengals players banged up, I can't help but think it's gonna be another tough game for the Bengals.
All right, Paul.
Tommy, gonna really quick tell who Tommy got. Tommy
Oh,
got
right.
the Ravens as well. I got the Cincinnati Bengals in this game.
Okay.
Even knowing all their injuries, I still think the Bengals will get it done. Kind of doubting that, but like I'm gonna continue. I'm gonna put. I wrote
Stick
it
to
down
your
in pen,
guns.
so I'm going to have to. So give me the Bengals.
I like it, Paul. And I know the Ravens already beat them in Cincinnati, but we've seen Lamar have some ugly divisional losses the last couple of games and kind of, piss down his leg. So I'm also going the Bengals. I trust Joe Burrow more in these big matchups. So give me the Bengals.
All right, next game is going to be another big AFC North because it seems like every game in the AFC North is going to be crucial until now into the end of the year. Steelers at the Browns without Deshaun Watson for the rest of the year.
I was actually going with the Browns for this one, but after hearing that Deshaun is out, um, obviously like Deshaun, like he hasn't been like a huge difference maker this year, but I screw it. I'm still going with the Browns. That defense is too good, and the Steelers' offense, although Mr. Matt Canada, he went to the sideline. They're too inconsistent, and I don't like when in those games where where the other team outgains them, but they still win. The Browns' defense is just too good. It's just going to impede them. So I'm going to go with the Browns, even though Steelers' victory is kind of what the Bills need.
Yeah, the Watson injury kind of changes up the equation. And you look at kind of the way the Steelers have been winning, at least prior to the Packers game. I don't know if that still continued, but they've been outgained in every game, but still have been managing to find ways to win. They're just so well coached with Mike Tomlin. Have been running the football
because
well.
they don't have turnovers.
But that being said, if we're being honest, the reason they beat the Browns in the first matchup was because of Deshaun Watson. He had a couple turnovers that led to tuds. So, you put in PJ Walker, just someone who's, just going to lead field goal drives, lead maybe, a run to Ford. Maybe he'll, run it in, maybe he throws in one touchdown pass. But all he's got to do is play efficient football and not give TJ Watt and those guys the ball to lead to touchdowns and, give Kenny Pickett opportunities. Like the one stat that sticks to me is Kenny Pickett in his career in 2 seasons has 13 wins, 13 touchdown passes, and 13 interceptions.
Oh my God. 13 touchdown passes. That's absolutely atrocious. I mean, they had put Mitch Trubisky in some of those games.
He hasn't played like the full 2 seasons, but yeah,
No.
he has not a lot of
man,
touchdown
that's
like in
nothing.
13 games, you can say 13 wins.
You got.
So you're taking the Steelers in this one?
yeah.
Just one.
No, I'll take the Browns. I said
Okay.
the reason the Steelers won the last time was because of Watson gave them the ball. There's at least one pick six, maybe a fumble six. Watson had as well. Like, that was the difference maker at the end. Like, Cleveland was leading going into the fourth quarter, and Pittsburgh had minus 11 yards of offense and still won that game last time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree. They got a good defense. Give me the Browns.
Tommy's going to agree with you 3, and I'm going to jinx the Browns this week. The Browns, I also have the Browns. I mean, look, the Browns' defensive line is super good. Even though Deshaun Watson hasn't played, really a single snap all season, they're still 6-3. I mean, you could basically say these 2 teams are the 2 worst 6-3 teams currently in the NFL. I mean, they're just defense driven. Um, Browns are coached okay. I mean, Mike Tomlin, is one of the better coaches in this league, but I think PJ Walker, is fine. I think that's how they're going to win this game, but this game might be decided based on Myles Garrett just being Myles Garrett. This game might be a 9-6 game on Sunday, but the
Mhm.
Browns, I think, are better built to win a 9-6 game. All right.
Next game.
How about a fun game down in Houston? Maybe
Ooh.
the first rookie since Jim Brown to win the MVP. Houston versus Arizona in Houston.
Oh man. Um, this is a tough one because like you think about Houston, like can they keep up with this success?
Mhm.
But the Cardinals just got Kyler Murray back. And I didn't watch the game, but I saw the final drive that they had to win it.
Mhm.
And, say what you want about Kyler, but he has the tangibles to win games. He's got the legs, he's got the arm, he's got the speed, the scramble ability. So my gut says the Cardinals. Maybe before Kyler came back, I would definitely say Houston, but I'm gonna take the Cardinals for this one. I just think that they're gonna pull out the win, and Kyler Murray's just gonna put them over the top. CJ Stroud, he can't like keep. He's got CJ Stroud has 2 interceptions.
Right.
Turnover worthy plays percentage is the same as Josh Allen. 2.4.
The
So
the question as to whether the Cardinals would be in the Caleb Williams stakes and be replacing Kyler Murray from before the season will be even more evident after this week's game when the Cardinals beat the Texans. Kyler Murray goes out again and answers, the question that he is the franchise quarterback. They can either take a receiver like Harrison to boost up the offense, maybe draft another tackle or trade it
my
out
God.
to help boost out the team. Because
Imagine
they'll be in,
Harrison. Imagine Harrison in line with guys like Larry Fitzgerald and DeAndre Hopkins, as like Arizona receivers.
yeah, for
Like,
sure.
oh my gosh.
I mean, Harrison, I feel like he's kind of the perfect mold for like a Cardinals receiver.
Mhm.
He can go up and get it from Murray.
Yep.
He's kind of used to playing with a quarterback who would scramble a little bit, and CJ Stroud back in OSU. Maybe not quite to the extent of Murray, but yeah, I mean, I feel like, they're in good hands with Kyler. So I go with the Cardinals, Paul.
Tommy has Houston, and I am going to make this an even split. I'm going to take Houston. I think they're right now one of the highest flying teams currently in the NFL. CJ Stroud, even though Jenna pointed out,
Mm-hmm.
his turnover rate highest percentage is with Josh Allen, but he only has like 2 interceptions at this point. I mean, just CJ Stroud has been playing wonderful,
Yeah, he's playing
and
out of this
Panthers
world.
Yeah.
fans are wishing they took him over Bryce Young. I mean, look,
Yeah.
this
Don't
right now, Houston is a dangerous team. Don't want to mess with this young team. Houston, I think, wins over an Arizona team I just don't know where they are at the moment.
yeah.
All right.
Sometimes like, you think about these rookie quarterbacks or quarterbacks that are like so young and have
Mhm.
so much potential and stuff. You kind of like envy,
Right.
obviously you don't want to be in a situation where you're bottom of the league franchise or bottom of the league team, but when your team has so much potential like the Texans, you kind of envy being a fan of that team because you just got so much to look forward to. Like their future is so bright with CJ. But like, it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch these guys grow up.
All right, let's get through these. What do we got for 4?
All right. Next one is Rams hosting the Seattle Seahawks. Let's go through this one quickly.
I got Seattle. I don't really know what's going on with the Rams right now, but I feel like Seattle is a. I think the Rams actually had beat Seattle early this season.
Yes, they did week 1.
So, the Seattle has a chance to match that. I think they're looking for revenge.
Yeah, I also got Seattle as well. They're a very talented team, even on both sides of the ball. Gino, his career resurgence continues. And I think they're actually still first in their division. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to be fighting for that NFC West division, and it's going to be interesting to when they, finally, meet San Francisco. I can't wait for those matchups. But
Oh man, I can't wait for
give me,
Thanksgiving.
yeah, give me the
That's gonna be a
Seahawks.
good game. Yeah.
Give me the home team, the Rams. I think Matthew Stafford, I believe, is coming back in this game. So I mean, I
Yes.
think the Rams.
Oh yeah.
The Seattle is obviously a good choice here. I mean, Geno Smith, Tyler Lockett, and you know how they've been playing. But I think the Rams, they're just that team that is just hidden in the weeds and just waiting to come out and are waiting in the weeds and want to come out and attack. So I think the Rams are going to get hot, and I think it starts they host the Seattle Seahawks. All right, next game is the Sunday night game. Russell Wilson versus Joshua Dobbs on Sunday Night Football. Jenna, who you got on this waiting all night for Sunday night?
Oh, I am so buying the Josh Dobbs hype. He's been phenomenal. The off script plays that he makes, using his legs, it's just where did this come from? To be honest, he hasn't even played with Justin Jefferson yet. So imagine when JJ comes back, he's gonna have more reliable weapons with TJ and Jordan Addison. I'm taking the Vikings. They've been playing really good.
Yeah, I love the Josh Dobbs experience too. I'm a big fan of O'Connell,
Astronaut.
the culture. Yeah, the astronaut. They're building. You can see everyone's bought in. They have weapons. But that being said, ever since they got embarrassed in Miami and they allowed 70 points, that Denver Broncos defense has turned it around. They allowed 19 points in Kansas City. Then at home, allowed 17 points against the Packers. 9 points against the Chiefs at home. And then obviously, that game against Buffalo, forcing 4 turnovers. Russell Wilson is playing way better than he was last year. That defense, again, is playing well. And Denver's a very hard place to play. You got the altitude, the crowd is very raucous, the incomplete chant they always do. Give me the Broncos here. I'm kind of buying into the Sean Payton hype a little bit, and Russell Wilson, he's kind of cooking. Let's ride.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of hype in this game, so you could just say it's just the hype game.
This is gonna be like
whatever
a meme
angle
game,
you want to look at.
This game would be good on Nickelodeon.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. The Vikings are just the Vikings are a funny team to me. I think they're the funniest team in the league. To be honest.
The Josh Dobbs hype is awesome. He deserves what he's getting because he's playing so well. But I just don't buy it enough to take the Minnesota Vikings in this game. I'm going to take the Denver Broncos. I mean, even though Buffalo, was a bad, it wasn't playing up to par, they still came into Buffalo and basically almost one-upped us in a way. It did come down to 12 men on the field, but they still kind of stuck it to us and say, hey, even though we haven't played good in the first opening few games of the year, but we're back and we're back to playing old Denver Broncos football. So give me the Denver Broncos in this game, but maybe the game of the weekend.
Wait, who's Tommy pick?
To close out Oh, Tommy got Minnesota, so he must be
Okay,
buying that.
we had a split on that as well. So interesting.
Yeah. But the game of the weekend, the rematch of the Super Bowl, but this is an Arrowhead, not at neutral site. Chiefs versus Eagles. Who do we got?
Ooh. Huh. This is a tough one because, in my heart, like I want the Eagles to win just to push the Chiefs down a notch. They already benefited us by beating the Dolphins last week, but the Eagles, I think they're a little banged up. So I've heard.
Mhm.
It's Dallas Goedert. He's got an injury that he suffered versus the Cowboys. So the Eagles offense has been rolling. The Chiefs offense has not been rolling. But they've had the bye week to maybe figure things out, try to, implement new things. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs because their defense has been playing really, really, really good. I think that bye week will benefit them and that they'll look like a more complete offense, more balanced offense. Something we haven't seen in weeks.
Yeah, it's very hard to pick against Patrick Mahomes in Arrowhead, but you saw, kind of how, AJ Brown and Darius Slay and those Eagles players took, how that Super Bowl ended. And, just going off of this Chiefs team, they don't believe in the regular season as much as other teams. And Philly right now, they're a freight train. They're rolling. So I think that continues. Like they're gonna want this Super Bowl rematch a lot. I know it's an Arrowhead, but I give the edge to their offense even as well as the Chiefs defense has been playing. I haven't seen enough from the Chiefs offense this year, so give me the Eagles.
Tommy has the Kansas City Chiefs. Last time I picked against the Kansas City Chiefs was week 1 when they were raising their Super Bowl banner, and I made the wise choice to pick the Detroit Lions, and I was correct. But this week I just feel Super Bowl rematch. It's in Arrowhead. It's prime time Monday night football. That's the lights are on both teams, but the lights will be on Patrick Mahomes, but most notably Travis Kelce's girlfriend, Taylor
Oh,
Swift.
she's gonna
And
be at
just
the game. Yeah.
there's
Who
nothing
cares?
that does not
Who
correlate to why I'm picking
cares?
the Chiefs. The Chiefs defense, even though their offense hasn't looked right, their defense has looked wonderful this season.
It's
And so
kind of like
that's
with
the
the
reason
Bills.
why I am taking the Chiefs.
All
That's
right.
kind of like with the Bills. Like their offense, it hasn't been going as smoothly. That's the same thing with the Chiefs, but both the defenses, they've been carrying the team.
Yeah, and I guess we'll see what happens this weekend. Does Joe Brady, fix the offense? Is Gabe able, to be, more implemented? Is Josh able, to, get back to the old Josh that we saw? A lot of interesting questions to be answered this weekend. But do you guys have anything else as we wrap up?
Um,
Bills will open up the game against the Jets with the quarterback draw, and Josh Allen goes for 75 yards.
I like that. I like that. I think
I like
if
it.
that happens, all of Bill's Mafia is just gonna erupt and like everything, like for the time being, like all of the issues will be forgotten. But I mean, reality is, how many of these in-season coordinator changes go well? I know someone mentioned the Ravens had won a Super Bowl off of one, but I mean, on the flip side, I
They
remember
were 9-4 at that point.
last year, the Colts were kind of struggling and stuck in the mud. And, Frank Reich served up his offensive coordinator. And shortly after, his head was on the chopping block. So, I mean, what happens if you lose to the Jets? Things could get really ugly. I mean, does Sean McDermott, survive the season? If the Bills lose to the Jets, you play the Chiefs next, or sorry, the
Yo,
Eagles and the Chiefs next. If you lose all 3 of those games and then you go on, going from Cincinnati, that would have been like a 5-game skid, losing to the Broncos and, and Jets in those. Like, I don't know if McDermott even, survives the season. So, I mean, it'll be interesting.
Bye
Yeah.
week is coming up after the Eagles game, so these next 2 games for McDermott are huge because I don't think, heading into the Kansas City game, or after the Kansas City game, right after that, fire him right into another important stretch, So I think these next 2 games will definitely be an interesting thing. Where does the life of of Sean McDermott's tenure in Buffalo last?
Right.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Jenna.
What I was gonna say earlier, for a brief moment I forgot what I was gonna say. But I've been thinking about it the whole time. Just like how the locker room has felt about Ken Dorsey and their opinions of him. We don't exactly know, but it kind of says something when Puna Ford autographs a sign that says, "All I want for Christmas is Ken Dorsey to be fired." Um,
Yeah.
so, you know, he's putting validity in that statement. And then also, there's something about him like liking a tweet or even like tweeting something that said "free me." So he could be referring to his inactive status on game day, which if Jordan Phillips is not going to play this week, get Puna Ford in there, man. That could be one of the best things for this defensive line. But I think this locker room had enough of him, of Ken Dorsey.
And I mean, that's a great, point. And with that, the Buffalo Basement returns tomorrow at 7, I believe, if that's correct, Paul. We'll
Yes.
be back here Monday at 7 to break down the Bills game, and hopefully Tommy will make his triumphant return. It seems like
Oh,
it's been a
man.
minute
3 weeks,
since
Tommy.
Tommy's been on the show, but I mean, we miss Tommy. So Tommy,
He's a curse.
we yeah, exactly, the curse of Tommy. Ever since Tommy's been gone, like, the Bills haven't won, so we need Tommy back, to get back to the winning ways. But other than that, thank you again to Ryan Talbot for joining us. Make sure to follow and tune into the Shout podcast, and we'll be back again next week at 7. And as always, go Bills.
Go
Go
Bills.
Bills. Let's hope for a better result.
Yeah, for sure.